Hey everyone, welcome to a fresh video here on the Blue Abroad YouTube channel. We are here during the pre-finals bye. I am here to just recap what has happened this season, get a bit of a pulse check as to where I'm at, where you're at, look at what has been so far in the 2024 AFL season, and sort of use this opportunity to reset and just recap what's happened and look forward to finals football. Wrapped that we're playing finals football more than anything. Ultimately, finals footy is what we wanted, what we want, what we need as a club, as a supporter base. And before we get into the final series and the storylines are about to come up through that, whether it be selection issues and form line and ticketing and the like, I think it is important to just give some sort of a outlook or paint some sort of a picture as to how we got here and what had happened. And the season, every season, no matter what, it has a funny way of grabbing me. I felt really prepared for this season, doing a pre-season of sorts, mentally getting ready for this year. I know that's something that I hadn't done in seasons gone by. And it all started on a really high note. It seems like a lifetime ago, but at the same time, it feels like yesterday. Friday, the 8th of March, opening round at the Gabba against the Brisbane Lions. No Wiedering, no Walsh. We go there, we're down by 46 points. We somehow manage to come back and make that a game in the third quarter, and then it's back and forth in that fourth quarter, and we pull off one of the most miraculous comebacks that we've seen in club history. And that was a feeling at the time that I thought was going to set the tone for the season. Did it? It kind of did. In some respects, it kind of did. I was really bullish on it. I generally am glass half full with this team now because of what had been overcome last year and, finally breaking through and qualifying for finals and then going all the way through to a preliminary final in the team's first experience as a final side. So I had a sense of optimism coming into the year. We get to opening round. That starts beautifully. Then we start to go on a bit of a nice patch. And I look at this season in months, personally. I look at it in, batches of 3 or 4. I thought the first month was just a tick. You win by 1 against the Lions. We struggled a little bit against the Tigers in round 1, first game of the MCG. We then had a really unique opportunity to have a bye in round 2. Then we saw a really strong performance against North on Good Friday. We win that by 56 points. We score in the 130s. Things were rolling pretty well. Then we recap our first 4. Well, that was the first month, really. We then get to April, and that was when we started talking about the team in a different way. So we got out of jail a little bit against Fremantle. We did defend very well, and I think that was the highlight of that day. Our defence was holding up on that day. It was a really scrappy affair for the most part. We managed to get that, and that was 4-0, and that was a really strong start. And this is a team that has traditionally not started well in season. So our first real blip came against the Crows. They kicked 16-4 that day. We lose by 2. Sam Berry from a stoppage. I remember at the time being disappointed about the loss, but still pretty optimistic. The season was back then, and it, has really carried through in the sense of how even it was and how even it is. Now, the Crows obviously go on to not play finals, so this loss probably hurts more than what I thought it might. I thought the Crows would turn it around. I think most of us had them in the final series at the start of the year, but it wasn't to be. And then I thought we saw some really strong response from the club, from the team. We had a really strong performance against the Giants at Marvel Stadium. They were undefeated at the time. They were the top side. They were playing brilliant footy. They were playing good footy in that first half, and we really started pulling away. And I think from this moment is when we started seeing the scoring profile increase. Looking at the scoreline now, 117-98, we can see the defense just wasn't at its peak. It wasn't limiting teams to less than 80, which is, I think, generally speaking, a good marker of a good defensive side. But we were winning. We had a scoring profile that was improving. We then lose to the Cats in what I remember to be a pretty wasteful affair. We came home strong. Crowd got involved very late, probably too little too late in the end. Well, definitely too little too late in the end. We lose by a kick to the Pies. So in that moment, I remember thinking whether it was a fork in the road or whether it was just a little blip. But that was probably the first time that there was a seed of doubt put into the team. At that time, we had the injuries peaking. McGovern and Sard. I think there were 13 on the injury list, and that was that. We then scraped through for a 1-point win against the D's, which we had good control on that game for the majority, and they just came home really strong and were able to hold on. The first, I would say, bad loss was against the Swans in round 10. We lose by 52 points. And at that point, down at the SCG, nothing worked. We got exposed. The Swans' speed, the way they moved by foot, the way they moved the ball, it was just too much. And I remember at the time, that was a really big and elevated question mark around the team and around the pace of the team. And this was around about the time where we started seeing some changes. George Hewitt, Matt Kennedy, can you play both? Can you not? It's a conversation that we've had for years now, but that was when we were forced to make some change. We did see Zach Williams play forward in that game. And then we start to go on what I believed to be the run and the turning point of this. So strong win against the Suns at Marvel Stadium. Strong win against Port Adelaide away from home. We pulled away late in that game. It was a fantastic contest. First time that we've beaten Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. We limit them to 71 points. We score 107. Granted, they didn't have Connor Rozee, but still, the profile of the game was what it was. I thought that was a really strong performance. We then play the Bombers. We beat them. I remember that game. We looked in control, and I felt at this time that we had started to see the team play in a bit of a flow state. I was really confident about the team because they were being challenged. We were playing quality opposition. The draw was a tough draw. We had injuries, so we had challenges, and I thought we were overcoming them pretty well. I was really bullish about what was to come because we were getting results, playing good footy, being challenged, and so it wasn't coming easy. We have the bye, and then we have the best performance of the season against the Cats at the MCG. We win by 63 points, 138 to 75. Nice profile of the scoreline there. Sam DeConey plays in the ruck against Tom. Tom goes on this stretch of games here, which started probably against the Bombers, really, where he looks like he's gone to a new level, and we've added another layer to the star factor in the team. We then go and beat the Tigers in round 16 by 61 points. We score in the 130s again. It was 131 to 70. At this point, I felt more than belief. I felt trust, which I hadn't felt for this club in a long time. I've always been a believer of what we're capable of. I've always been a believer in the club. I'm an optimist. I love it. And I think, looking back now, that probably clouded my sense of judgment. I let the emotions get into me more in the positive sense than the negative, which is a funny realization. But at that point, we're sitting in a really strong position, 11-4, looking great, beating teams by 10 goals. The Tigers maybe not so much of a one to brag about, but the Cats one was a really big one. Everything changes. We then go to NG Stadium. The first quarter was unbelievable. We're up by 39 points against the Giants. We end up losing this game. And I've not felt the same way about the team since. I was cautiously optimistic about them. I think in retrospect now, I was just trying to tell myself that everything was okay. But you're entitled to a bad game, and that wasn't good. That was a bad game considering where we were in that game and how strong of a position we were. And the Giants at the time were not in good form. They were playing for their I don't know if your season can be on the line in round 17, but I remember the chatter around that time. That's what it was coming to. They couldn't get their game going, and for whatever reason, our game started brilliantly. I think in a funny way, the best that we looked was in that first quarter all season long. So that happens. We then get that chance to respond against the Dogs in Patrick Cripps' 200th game. Marvel Stadium. It was round 18, Saturday, 13th of July, and we lose that one by 14 points. And I remember thinking, it was disappointing that we couldn't find the energy for it. But I think at this point I was still pretty bullish, still blinded, I guess, by what had been and what had happened. A 12-month period from as far back as round 13 last year to round 16 this year of really good footy, strong footy. And then so we have another 2 losses in a row there. Then we get to North. It wasn't convincing, but North were in some form. We win that one by 19 points in round 19, 107-88. We then have the Port Adelaide game, and Harry's not playing. Lewis Young is in. That was the concussion gate, whether he was concussed or whether he wasn't, whatever. Woke up sick on the morning. We lose that game. I think my belief was still pretty strong there as well. I was noticing around me others were starting to see things for what they eventually became, but I was still pretty bullish. The Collingwood game, I went into that game. So this is August. This is the month that we're in right now, the time of filming. The Collingwood game, I went into thinking, perfect. We're in the final month of football. We've got 4 games left. We've had patches of great footy. We've had patches of injury, which we've overcome. We've found new roles for players, Zach Williams, Chincotta as a tagger, etc. I thought the Collingwood game was really the one where we would turn it around. And so I kept that belief strong. We lose by a kick after the siren, but really there was just something a bit off with them. We were starting to see more patches of inconsistency than what we had seen earlier in the year. Then I think the one that really got me was the Hawthorn game. So, we're talking about an 8-day break. You could make the case that North into Port was a 5-day break, Sunday into Friday. Maybe they had something to play into. But the Hawthorn game, it wasn't about... I understand that the injuries really compounded what happened on that day. And the result is the result. We lose by 74 points, 38-112. And I wasn't as mad at the result. What I got mad about was what I could see. Maybe it was the bubble bursting and the belief bursting. And from that day, I don't know if I've really recovered in terms of what to believe. Are they committed? Are they diligent in their preparation? Because I saw that Hawthorn game as a game where I felt for the first time that the preparation was lacking. And then I think now seeing what has happened since, going back to those games where I still had that belief, maybe 2% of preparation wasn't where it needed to be in some of those games. And what we were seeing earlier in the year where we were overcoming these moments with some good luck, was that due to good preparation? And later in the season, it was due to poor preparation. I don't think it's as simple as that, but I was really worried after Hawthorn that we were fractured because there were holes in the ground that weren't there earlier. The attention to detail wasn't there. We started looking a little bit more like the first half of 23 where they were thinking a little bit too much rather than playing on instinct. We had gotten to a point in the year where we were playing with this flow state mentality, and then it got to this point where we were overthinking things. Then we have a genuine injury crisis, which I thought earlier in the season was the injury crisis. I remember doing my mid-season review and just saying, can we please get some good luck with some injury? Maybe I shouldn't ask for these things. We get to West Coast. Look, that was a good win considering who was available. We have the kids come and play. That may have been a lesson to learn that maybe they should have played earlier in the year. Was there a management question around team selection? Was there a management question around sore bodies? Was what it was. We win by 65 points. We then get to St Kilda, the last game of the season. We need to win the game to lock in finals. If we lose the game, we need to rely on Fremantle to lose their game against Port Adelaide. We lose by a kick in the dying seconds. to Jack Higgins. That will go down. Round 24 will go down as one of the craziest days I've experienced as a supporter. And it's interesting because I felt that I was quite on top of how to manage the emotions. But I guess as a fan, because it's all out of your control, and fans in general, like, we're emotional, we're passionate. That's kind of what makes a fan a fan. You know, we're not working in the club. We're not, our job isn't to stay calm and kick the ball where it needs to be kicked, or, do our extra stretches or do our extra sessions of rehab or whatever the case may be, or our touch. Our role is to be as passionate and as emotional on game day as possible. And yeah, after St Kilda and that day, I still am left feeling this uncertainty, whereas earlier in the season I was really certain, like, this was it. After Geelong, I remember talking to a lot of people in the fan cams, and you might remember I was asking people, like, do you trust what this is? Because I was seeing a lot of rhetoric from the older guard around, oh, this is the best that we've looked since 95. I've seen it. And I remember the rhetoric over the years, when it clicks, you'll know. I had fans and friends who support opposition clubs talking about, this is it. This is the day we've been fearful of, when Carlton figure it out. And so I completely let go to it, and I embraced it. And I think it now coming back, and now I guess it's really centered me a little bit more. There'll be a lesson learned later in, this year, when the final series is over, in just continuing to stay as level as possible. Still haven't figured it out, which I was really hoping this would be the year that I would, but I haven't. I'm chipping away at it. I'm working at it. So we end up with 13 wins, 10 losses, 54 points, which is a little worse than last year. We had 13 wins and a draw last year for 54 points. Now, that would not have gotten us a better position this year. We still would finish 8th. And so we now go into a final series, which I believe is the most important part of the journey of this group. Like, it has to be, in order to win a premiership, you've got to give yourself the best chance. Now, to give yourself the best chance, you've got to finish in the top 4. Statistically, that's the truth. We were there for a long time. We let it slip for whatever reason, whether we lost our focus as a team, as a club, we allowed little behaviors to seep in, little things with our mentality to seep in. I don't know what the answer is. What I have is just a number of questions and speculation. So I find myself now in this point where, do I believe that we're capable of winning the premiership? Yes, I do believe we are capable of winning the premiership. But that is a little bit more of an emotional feeling than what it is logical. The logic tells me that we can't do it from 8th because no one's ever done it. Does that make it impossible? No, it just makes it highly unlikely because no one's ever done it. So there is a chance, but in order to do it, history will say it's never been done, whatever. So that's rocked me a bit, if I'm honest. I went from belief after last year to full trust to, oh God, I got it wrong. You can't just fully trust it. And now I'm left in this space where I believe in their ability and I just don't know what's going to happen. And is that where it should be? Is that where I should be with what I think about the team? Probably. When I think about this club and how I've experienced it in my life, the idea of winning a premiership, is it really going to come in a season where everything just goes right from start to finish? No. This club takes us through a journey that is unlike anything else I've really experienced in life, probably because I've not committed my care to something as much as the Carlton Football Club, where I ride something that's not in my control. When something's in my control, different story. So I'm excited to play finals footy. I think having those games is critical for this list. I've been feeling that finals needed to be on the agenda and played in since 2020. If not, then 2021. So, 22, it's ripped from us at the death, but really it was done earlier. 23 we get there, and here we are in 24. So the idea of not playing finals this year, I'm glad we don't have to live through that. We're going to play finals. Now, is it going to last 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? We'll see. But I go into Brisbane next week thinking it's hope again. I'm hopeful more than what I am confident. I mean, I'm confident that we are able to get the job done, but ultimately it's hope. So I've been pegged back a bit, which is so strange because usually I'm distraught with disappointment, whereas this year was so different. I went the other way. I was so excited with positivity and trust, and I was brought back to center. So I'm somewhere in the middle again. Do I believe we have the right leaders in the right positions at the club? Yes, I do. That leadership can only truly be tested when you're in trouble, which is what we have been. The concern I have is that I haven't seen Carlton really in the same vein as what we saw them in round 15 against the Cats. 16, we win by 61. We pulled away later in that game as it went on. 17, that first quarter against the Giants. So we're talking from July the 6th through to now, the 30th of August at the time of filming this. We're going to go to Brisbane and play them on the 7th of September. So it's been a couple of months and they haven't been the same. I think the last 2 games we saw the spirit return. The conversations around stoppage team, clearance team, contest pressure, you have to have the turnover game. We did add a layer of turnover game to our arsenal. I just don't think we've been able to put it all together. Now, is that what September's about? Is that what it's going to be about? Is it about putting everything you've done in the regular season, being able to reset and then just go again? I think we are going to be a team that benefits the most from the pre-finals bye. And the reason is, well, not twofold. There's a couple of reasons. Number one, the rest for the injured players. So, Charlie Curnow, Harry Mackay, Tom De Koning, Adam Chera, Sam Doherty, Jack Martin, Zach Williams, these types, Jordan Boyd, to get an extra week in for them of recovery and hope they can get back and then get back to some form, I think is going to work in our favour. The mental reset for everyone, fans, players, staff, everyone. The season, this is tough. This takes a toll because we care. There is an emotional investment. There is a spiritual investment in this. So to have a freshener is great. Unfortunately, for the Melbourne supporters who live here in Melbourne, who are not going to be travelling interstate, we're likely not to see the Blues again unless we meet with Geelong in a prelim or we make a grand final. So that's a reality. I do think going into a final series as the complete underdog benefits us because for whatever reason, and I think this will be the theme of the end of season review as well, we just haven't been able to perform when the external, and that being fans, media and the like, are giving us the pats on the back and the support and all of that and all the love, because they got it. They had it. 11-4, everyone was talking about this is it. This is the Carlton, second favourite to win the premiership. We play the Swans at the MCG. We'll get them there, and then we haven't seen them back to that level since. The most interesting part about the 8 that I see right now is every single team in the 8 has had their poor patch at some point in the year, but they've found it. They've done the learning and they've rediscovered themselves, except Carlton. Unless you believe that the last 2 games of the season was us rediscovering it, we haven't found our level. Some teams in the 8 started well, like Sydney had their patch very similar to us, but they rediscovered themselves. The Lions didn't start the season well, rediscovered themselves, and they finished the season relatively strongly. The rest of them, for the most part, started so-so, found themselves in a hole. I mean, Port and the Dogs were, they were about to sack their coaches if you were listening to mainstream media. The Hawks started 0-5. So, Geelong started well, had their mid-season slump, found their form late. Carlton is the only team that hasn't found their level again. So, does that mean there's a chance we're going to find it in the most important period of the year? Maybe. if we fall away completely in the first round, the obvious questions will come, like, what happened? There, I think the narrative might move to, a complete fall off. Is there something internal? We saw the news around Andrew Russell and that, and I'll do another video on Andrew Russell and, potential replacements, which is starting to heat up. Ash Hansen with the West Coast coaching gig was considering it. Then he sort of, verbally recommitted to Carlton. So there's a few question marks, but I'm hopeful that we can find our form. Now, if we find ourselves again and find our form again, then we're a chance. And it will be magical. The Blues start the season so well, strong position, top 2, fall into a hole again, and then find themselves in 8th spot going into a final series, and the impossible happens. But the chances of it happening are very slim to none. So we'll see. But that's where I'm at. This year will definitely, I can see it already, go down as the one where I got myself overexcited because I saw the light. I started dreaming 11-4, and the little dream as a kid to one day experience a Carlton premiership started coming out. And I guess you just got to balance living in your dream, in your fantasy, and then living in the reality. But I swear it was real. I swear the form line was real. It was 11-4. I can't honestly look back at that form line and say it wasn't real. That patch afterwards, I was thinking it's going to be okay because, this team's professional now. They've figured it out. They're going to find themselves. They've been in bigger holes before. So that's where I've become more confused. And now I'm in this uncertain space. Hopeful, but ultimately uncertain what's going on. So that's where I'm at. Going into the final series, I'm very excited because it is a reset. We go back to the Gabba where we played an opening round. It should be a cracking contest. We will preview that properly next week. But I wanted to get a vibe check from you. Where are you at? What have you observed of 2024 so far in the regular season? And what do you observe going into the final series, which either gives you confidence or which gives you concern? Chat about it in the comments. We'll go from there. Go Blues.